The world is about to get a whole lot hotter. There is an 80% chance that El Nino, a natural occurring climate phenomena, develops in the next few weeks, and more than a 90% chance that that happens by the end of the year. Those numbers come from the World Meteorological Organization today, and that's about as close as climate science gets to saying this is going to happen. And this time, against the backdrop of a planet that's already significantly warmer than before, the impact could be stronger in some regions. So today we're asking, how bad could this get? And are we ready? Well, to break that down, I'm joined now by Dr. Michael McFadden. He's a senior scientist at NOAA, the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, one of the world's leading authorities on weather, oceans and climate. He spent decades studying El Nino and helped build the global observation systems that we use to track it. Dr. McFadden, it's great to have you with us here on DW. So let's start with a little bit of a science corner moment, if you will. Can you explain what El Nino actually is in simple terms?
Yes, well, thank you for having me, Hannah. El Nino is a naturally occurring phenomenon, as you mentioned. It happens irregularly every 2 to 7 years, and it's characterized by an unusual warming of a large expanse of water in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. And this occurs when the trade winds suddenly weaken in the Western Pacific. And that sudden weakening of the trades leads to an initial warming. The initial warming leads to a further weakening of the trade winds, and then the system becomes locked in a chain reaction where further warming causes more trade wind weakening, and the initial warm anomalies amplify significantly over the next several months.
And what exactly is happening right now that gives you this high level of confidence that El Nino is coming?
Well, we have seen an initial warming in the equatorial Pacific, and we have seen the initial relaxation of the trade winds, and the trades are continuing to weaken. The conditions now in the equatorial Pacific look very similar to what they looked like in early 1997 at the start of the largest El Nino of the 20th century. They look very similar to what conditions looked like in early 2015 at the start of the largest El Nino of the 21st century. Now, that does not mean that this El Nino will rival those two in magnitude, but the conditions are certainly favorable for that to happen. A lot can happen between now and the end of the year that could possibly derail it, but we are certainly set up for a big El Nino to occur at the moment.
And if you could explain to us as well, those of us who are less brushed up on our climate knowledge, how does something that's going on in the Pacific end up affecting weather all over the world?
The area of warming when a major El Nino occurs is about the size of the continental United States. And that area releases a huge amount of heat into the atmosphere, and it affects the general circulation of the atmosphere all over the globe. And this causes shifts in weather patterns where dry regions may become unusually wet regions may become unusually dry. There can be significant heat waves, severe tropical storms in greater frequency or intensity than normally occur. And these are all because of the atmospheric circulation changes that occur because of this massive heat release from the tropical Pacific Ocean into the atmosphere.
And now we do actually have a map here that shows the typical patterns during El Nino. Like you just said, their temperatures tend to be higher on average globally, and some regions like Australia and parts of Southeast Asia tend to get drier. In other areas, those that are shown here in blue, we tend to see more rainfall. So why is it that some of those regions get drier whilst others get more rain?
The heat released from the tropical Pacific Ocean will change where heavy rainfalls occur. For example, during normal years, the warmest water in the Pacific is found in the far western Pacific. Australia, Indonesia, and the Philippines normally experience heavy rainfalls during normal years in this region. When an El Nino occurs, the warmest water shifts eastward along the equator, and this dries out the Western Pacific, but it brings torrential rains to the island states of the Pacific and the west coast of South America. That's one example. The jet stream in the northern hemisphere shifts equatorward during El Nino, and the jet stream steers storms normally across the center of the United States. But during an El Nino year, it will steer those storms along the southwestern U.S., along the Gulf states, and into Florida. And so those regions will experience unusually heavy rains during El Nino year, whereas the northern tier of the United States will be warmer and drier.
Okay, so that's a bit of a breakdown about which countries will get wetter and which will get drier, but which countries need to be the most concerned this time about how their country will be impacted and which ones will be affected the worst?
Well, we say ground zero for El Niños in the rim countries of the tropical Pacific. This is where the effects are felt most immediately. So Western South America, Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines, these are regions that could have could feel the impacts directly. But the stronger the event, the greater the impact farther away. So the United States will not be immune to a strong El Nino. East Asia, South Asia will not be immune to a strong El Nino. Other parts of South America will not be immune to a strong El Nino. So the bigger the event, the larger the impacts, the farther away from the tropical Pacific.
And we have the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, calling the arrival of El Nino an urgent warning signal. Let's just take a listen to what he said.
El Nino conditions will pour fuel on the fire of a warming world. Impacts will hit even harder, travel even further, and cross borders with devastating speed. The only effective response is climate action equal to the crisis, ending the addiction to fossil fuels, accelerating the shift to renewables, protecting the most vulnerable, and delivering early warning systems for all.
So, Michael, if I could ask you to pick up on what he just said there, in what sense does El Nino act like fuel on the fire of climate change?
El Nino produces unusual weather patterns around the world, extreme droughts, extreme floods, heat waves, and shifts in the location and intensity of tropical storms. It is occurring now on a background that is much warmer than it was even 40 years ago. And a warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture. So, for example, where we might expect a heavy El Nino rainfall, because the atmosphere can hold more moisture, that rainfall now can become an extreme rainfall, which can lead to extreme flooding. Likewise, for drought, in a region that might experience a severe El Nino drought, because the warmer atmosphere can dry out soils more quickly and more thoroughly, climate change can make a severe El Nino drought into an extreme El Nino drought. So climate change is amplifying the impacts of El Nino in today's warmer world.
And Guterres also talked about climate action. Where would you say we are globally on that right now?
Well, I think there certainly is a growing awareness around the world, in all countries, about the fact that humans are altering the climate system, and that it's through the combustion of fossil fuels, heat-trapping fossil fuels, and deforestation, and that the impacts of climate change are being felt now regularly through the greater frequency of intense storms and heat waves, and other weather and ocean and climate extremes. So I think there is a growing concern about this, and not universally and not everywhere, but there is a greater motivation to actually try to make changes that decarbonize society and limit some of the more severe impacts of climate change on humanity and on natural systems.
And I guess on a related note, at what role do early warning systems play? Do we have anything in place in order to prepare us for what's potentially to come?
Well, of course, one of the goals of the research that we have been doing on El Nino for the past 40 to 50 years is to improve long-range weather forecasting related to it. And there have been great successes in this regard. If we know now, having seen the evolution of many El Nino events over the past several decades, how they evolve, how quickly they evolve, how large they can get. And we have many months of lead time between now and the end of the calendar year when it reaches its peak development. And so we know what the global fingerprint generally is of a major El Nino event. We know where it will be unusually wet or dry, where we can expect greater extreme heat. So there's plenty of time through these long-range weather forecasts to develop mitigation strategies to avoid some of the worst impacts of the event.
And maybe on a more individual level, how should people be preparing for something like this? And what would you tell anyone who's feeling overwhelmed by all of this, and maybe people who are looking for some kind of sense of hope in this?
Well, of course, El Nino has been occurring for eons, so we have lived through El Ninos before. We know that they can be destructive, but there is, as we have information now that helps us prepare, and we can take steps that will help us avoid some of the worst consequences of these events. Now, climate change, of course, is the background condition on which these events are occurring, and many people are feeling distressed about the trajectory of humanity towards a warmer world. But in fact, there are rays of light. We see that more people are driving electric vehicles, for example. Wind and solar power are becoming more affordable and competitive with fossil fuels as energy sources. So, if you look back 20 or 30 years, we've really come a long way in terms of changing our energy system. So there is a lot of hope, and for those who are feeling perhaps a little bit distressed by how events are unfolding, you can always choose by your personal actions whether you are doing your part to make the environment a better place. You can raise your voice, become politically active, and you can vote for political parties that you think represent your interests on the climate change issue most effectively.
That's Dr. Michael McFadden from NOAA. Thank you so much for your time and for shedding some light onto all of this for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.